Right now, you are living in the most prosperous, healthy, and technologically advanced era in human history. Yet, I'm willing to bet that scrolling through your social media feed makes you feel like the world is rapidly collapsing. Well, here's the thing. If you don't understand the invisible collision happening between your ancient biology and modern AI algorithms, you're going to spend your entire life trapped in a manufactured state of anxiety, totally disconnected from reality. So we're going to break down exactly how this algorithm of doom actually works and why your worldview is being systematically hijacked. Okay, let's dive into this. There's this fascinating concept researchers call the Easterlin paradox. By basically every objective measure of material flourishing, life expectancy, real income, access to technology, you and I are living way better than our grandparents did. Seriously, to our ancestors from just a few generations back, our modern era would look like an absolute utopia. But here's the catch. Our subjective happiness data, it's completely flatlined for over 50 years. We've literally never been richer, but man, we have rarely been angrier. So you gotta ask, why do our best days feel like our absolute worst? Well, the root of all this modern misery actually starts with our ancient biology. It's a psychological quirk known as negativity bias. You see, natural selection favored early humans who were, quite frankly, hypervigilant. If you heard a rustle in the bushes and immediately assumed it was a deadly predator instead of just the wind, you survived. Basically, evolution decided it was way better for us to be paranoid survivors than happy snacks. Because of that, adverse information just registers so much more forcefully in our brains than good news of the exact same magnitude. And look, this isn't just some cultural quirk. A massive experimental study published in PNAS, spanning 17 countries across 6 continents, proved that this bias is deeply, physically hardwired into all of us. When viewing negative news, the average human anywhere in the world experiences a measurable physical reaction. Your heart rate variability shifts, your skin conductance literally spikes. We are biologically programmed to pay intense physical attention to bad news. So what exactly happens when you take that ancient, paranoid biology and feed it directly into modern, profit-driven artificial intelligence? That is a wild combination. Stanford researchers actually wanted to understand this exact intersection of AI economics and human nature. To do it, they unleashed some serious computing power, analyzing a staggering 30 million social media posts from over 180 news organizations. They wanted to see what's really driving our online ecosystem. And this brilliantly illustrates what they found. The results are honestly pretty staggering. By using sentiment analysis algorithms, researchers discovered that high-arousal negative content is exactly twice as likely to go viral compared to positive or neutral posts. Twice as likely. Now, the AI isn't inherently evil, right? It's just ruthlessly optimizing for our attention. Because our biological negativity bias keeps our eyes glued to panic-inducing content, the algorithm actively learns to feed us more of it, purely to maximize our time on screen. What this does is create this massive supply-side mutation in the media landscape. Media outlets are desperate for ad revenue in an incredibly competitive attention economy, so they've completely adapted their output. That Stanford study revealed that news sources now post almost twice as much negative content as positive content, just to chase those engagement metrics. Just really think about that for a second. They are fundamentally altering the tone of reality itself just to trigger your evolutionary survival instincts. Now, when you break down exactly who is spreading all this negativity, the data gets incredibly revealing. Highly biased news sources, and this is on both the political left and the right, they inject about 12% more high-arousal negative content into their feeds. And crucially, even the balanced mainstream sources, they're starting to mirror this overwhelming negativity too, just to survive the metrics race. But here is the really surprising part. Meanwhile, everyday individual users actually tend to post net positive content. The doom isn't coming from each other. It is literally being manufactured from the top down. Let's move to how this builds, because when you stitch all these pieces together, you get what researchers call the doom loop. It's a simple, destructive cycle. Step 1. Social media algorithms reward our biological negativity bias. Step 2. Media outlets chase that algorithmic engagement for profit. Step 3. The news heavily skews toward the negative. And step 4, your anxiety spikes, keeping you clicking and scrolling, which feeds right back into step 1. It's this perfect storm where a biological quirk snowballed into a society-wide crisis. The Stanford researchers actually came up with a great term for the fallout of this whole feedback loop: affective pollution.
Kind of like how smog chokes a city, affective pollution is this toxic buildup of emotionally manipulative, negative content polluting our digital environment. It creates severe emotional desensitization, and it fosters this culture of perpetual outrage, where we're just constantly primed to be angry at each other, instead of actually engaging in nuanced discussion.
And the real-world symptoms of this affective pollution, they are incredibly damaging. We end up locked in a state of constant threat perception, feeling like society is always just hovering right on the brink. That leads directly to a rapid erosion of trust in our institutions, and it fuels a massive rise in political polarization. Because, the algorithms force us into these ideological echo chambers. Ultimately, it just leaves us exhausted, dealing with widespread, paralyzing news fatigue.
To really understand why this keeps happening, we have to look at the basic economics of media. Slow, steady human progress, it simply doesn't generate clicks. The fact that a major disease was slowly eradicated over 10 years, that's not breaking news today. Incremental improvement is practically invisible to the algorithm. But price spikes, scandals, sudden disasters, those absolutely dominate. Our entire worldview is being aggressively distorted by this headline-amplified anxiety. This dynamic traps us in what you could call the tyranny of the small picture. We are constantly bogged down by daily, algorithmically amplified crises, and that makes us completely blind to the big picture, the undeniable objective reality that humanity has successfully solved massive global problems over the last few decades. From drastically reducing extreme global poverty to historic drops in child mortality. The big picture is incredibly bright, but the small picture we see on our screens is painted entirely in the dark. This dynamic is captured perfectly by researcher Marian L. Tupy. He notes, "The mood is a verdict on the story Americans have been told about the record, not the machinery that solved all the others." That is just a profound realization. If you feel exhausted and cynical right now, your feelings are completely valid. But you have to realize that your anxiety is a product of algorithmic storytelling. It's a reaction to the narrative you are being fed, not an accurate reflection of reality. The hard data proves that the world is steadily getting better, even as the supercomputers sitting right in our pockets scream that it's all ending. So the responsibility now falls squarely on your own media literacy and how intentionally you curate your feed. Will you let a sentiment analysis algorithm dictate your worldview by exploiting your ancient biology for profit, or will you break the doom loop and finally see the world as it truly is?